Welcome to the History Channel. Today we have a very special guest, Ms. Clara Barton, a teacher, nurse, humanitarian, and the founder and the first president of the American Red Cross. Please help me welcome a true American hero, Ms. Clara Barton. Ms. Barton, what is your full name?
Well, my full name is Clarissa Harlow Barton, but my family called me Clara.
And when and where were you born?
Well, I was born, believe it or not, on Christmas Day in 1821. I was the youngest of 6 children. I was born in Maryland, but I lived in many different places, including New York, New Jersey, Washington, D.C., and finally, Massachusetts.
What were some of your earliest jobs?
Well, my first job was as a school teacher. During my time as a teacher, I found it terrible that poor children could not be educated because their parents could not afford to pay for their schooling. I often would use my own money to adequately supply the schools with materials that they needed. And finally, I successfully lobbied the town to provide a free education for all children, even those that couldn't afford it, and that was to be paid for by the taxpayers. This new educational system, which is the same as it is now in your day, was unheard of back then. But it was so successful that other towns copied this model, and it has grown into our free educational system that you have today.
That's amazing. What an achievement.
Yes, it was. It was so successful, in fact, that these schools grew and grew popular and enrolled many, many more students. So the school boards decided that they could no longer be run by a woman. And I decided to leave teaching as I would not be treated less than a man.
What did you do next?
Well, I moved to Washington, D.C., and I became the first woman to be a clerk for the U.S. Patent Office.
What was it like living in Washington, D.C.?
Well, while I like what I did, women were not treated very well in the workplace back then. We were certainly paid less than men were for doing the same jobs. We were even demoted, had our titles taken away from us, and yet were required to do the same work as before. However, this was a very interesting time in our history because the Civil War was just starting.
What were you doing during the Civil War?
Well, during my time in Washington, I had made many important political connections. And hearing that our soldiers were badly in need of supplies, including food, medical supplies, medicines, and even doctors and nurses to tend to the wounded, I helped get many donations of these supplies sent to the battlefields. I even lobbied our government officials to allow me to go directly to the battlefields so that I could help coordinate these efforts.
Did they ever let you, a woman, go to the front lines of battle?
Well, yes. Finally, in 1862, I received a military pass to go to the battlefields with much-needed supplies and food. I took 3 other female volunteers with me.
It must have been scary. What were some of the most scariest moments?
Oh, yes, it certainly was scary. At times, I stepped through the wounded on the ground. My skirt was often blood-soaked. And once, a bullet came so close to hitting me it tore through my sleeve. I often tended to the wounded soldiers, performing duties more suitable to surgeons, of course, who were always male. And one time, I cut a man's cheek open just to remove a bullet that had pierced his cheek.
Oh, wow. I read that you became famous as the newspapers spread all of your good work tending to the wounded. You earned the nickname Angel on the Battlefield.
Oh, well, I was just doing my job.
Well, that's good. When the war was over, what did you do next?
Well, after the war, many family members of missing soldiers wrote desperate letters to me hoping I might remember tending to their loved ones. I often didn't even know the first names of the men I nursed, but I felt so badly for these families I just had to do something. I compiled a list of the missing men's names and had them published in newspapers asking readers to help find out where the men were or what happened to them. I used my own money to do this, but it was worth every penny. I helped to locate over 22,000 missing men. Even today, the Red Cross works with our military in this manner to keep service members and family connected.
What were some of the challenges you faced as a woman during your lifetime?
Well, the challenges were many. Women didn't have many opportunities back in my day. We were expected to stay home and tend to our husbands and children. If we wanted to work outside of the home, we were expected to be teachers, nurses, or work in lowly support roles. If a woman wanted to be a leader and make changes in our society for the better, we had to break rules. We had to prove people wrong. And even then, we never got our due. But for someone like me, I didn't do what I did for recognition or reward. I cared about my fellow man, and I had the power within me to make this world a better place.
Oh, and speaking of the Red Cross, tell me how you got involved with that organization.
Well, in 1881, I formed the American Red Cross Society, which was modeled after the Red Cross organization I learned about while I was in Switzerland. This organization trained medical assistants to bring medical help to those injured on the battlefield. Even though the war was over, I encouraged our government to support this organization, as we could certainly provide much-needed assistance to other tragedies, such as fires, floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, famines, blood shortages, and other natural disasters. I served as its president until my retirement in 1904.
Indeed you did, Miss Barton. Thank you for being with us today and all that you've done for humanity.
Oh, you're most welcome, young man.